This week I wanted to show you something that you can show off to your friends or family that only takes about 40 minutes to make and will be sure to impress. So here's the recipe, pause now if you want to write it down, and let's get straight into it. We'll start by cutting our cherry tomatoes in half. I'm using some multicoloured ones here, but you can use any cherry tomatoes you like. And now we need to peel 1 clove of garlic, and you're going to thinly slice this as best you can. And we need 1 slice per half of cherry tomatoes, so if 1 clove isn't enough, just do another one. Now put all of your cut cherry tomatoes onto a baking tray, and you want them cut side up. We'll season with a bit of pepper and some salt, don't be too shy here. And then we're going to place 1 of our slices of garlic on every cherry tomato half until they're all covered. Next up, we're just going to drizzle some oil over all of them, and you can use any oil that you have, and then put these into a preheated oven at 180 degrees centigrade or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. And now the rest of the dish should be achievable within that time frame, so we're going to start by cutting up some chorizo into a small dice. And whilst I'm doing this, I've got a frying pan here set to about a medium heat. So just throw that chorizo in, and we'll just stir it every 3 to 4 minutes. Next up, I'm just going to thinly slice a couple of Fresno chilies. These are quite small ones, but you can just use a large chili or any chili that you like, depending on how hot you want this. Move that to one side, and then we'll lightly crush a couple of cloves of garlic, and then we'll peel them, cut off the root, and very thinly slice them too. And we'll just save that for later. And now we want to get on some water for our pasta, and make sure you put a couple of big pinches of salt in this. And back to that chorizo, you can see it's rendering down nicely, but nowhere near enough yet, so just give that a stir and leave it to cook. Now take a slice off your lime for the plate later, and we'll just save the rest of it for the sauce. And now we're just going to finally chop our chives the best we can, and don't worry too much if they're not perfect here, it doesn't really matter. And put them in a pot ready for later. So now we'll move on to probably the most complicated part of this dish, which is peeling prawns. And if you haven't done this before, it's quite easy. You just need to peel off from the bottom where the legs are, each section round until each bit comes off. And then just work your way down to the tail, and once you get to the tail, you can just pull that off like so, and it should come off with no problem whatsoever. Now you've just got to twist off the head, and you're done. I'm going to keep 3 prawns with the heads on just for presentation later. Anyway, by now all of the fat should have rendered out of your chorizo, and you can just empty that into a bowl, but keep the oil because we're going to use that to cook all of our aromatics. So put that back on the heat to keep warm, and we're going to just finish prepping these prawns. So to do this, you want to make a shallow cut down the back of the prawn, and you'll see once you cut that open what's known as their digestive tract, or some people call it a vein. Either way, you want to pull this out and make sure it's all removed, unless you particularly like eating their waste, and you'll just repeat this for all of your prawns, including the ones with the head on. So now it's time to cook the pasta, so just drop it into the water vertically and it should spread out nicely, and you can just leave this to cook. In the meantime, we'll just chop up all of our prawns without the heads on and put them into a pot ready for later, and we'll also move these head on prawns out of the way for later as well. And that's all the prep done, so now let's start cooking our thinly sliced garlic in the chorizo oil. Just stir it around for about 2 minutes, and then we can add in about half of our sliced chili. We'll save the rest for garnish later. After 2 minutes, you can throw your chorizo back in, and again, just cook that for a further 2 minutes. And you can just pour in your double or heavy whipping cream, and by now your tomatoes should be ready, so take them out of the oven, and we're just going to take all of this sliced garlic off of them, and keep them hot by just putting them back in the oven, but leave the door open. Anyway, back to the sauce, and by now it should have reduced to a fairly thick consistency, and you can just squeeze in the rest of your lime for a little bit of acidity. Throw in all of your chopped chives, and finally add in your prawns. And just stir them through. They only take a couple of minutes to cook. By now your pasta should be ready, and you can add that to your sauce, and just give that a mix through. And you can see here I've put another pot of water on the boil ready to cook my head-on prawns, so you just want to slide them in. Again, these are only going to take about 2 minutes in the water. So after 2 minutes you're about ready to plate. And if you like this kind of thing, make sure you subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'll see you next week. Let's plate!